we, especially parents, are often worried that AI might make students lazy. So, what's your take on that? Is that a valid concern, or do we need to look at it differently?
But before you say, I have a comment on what Tim has been
Yeah, please.
saying, is that totally resonates. Yesterday, I saw in the Australian newspaper, which is a national publication, the
Mm-hmm.
Chief Justice of Australia came out and said, right at the bottom of an article, that he was very worried about AI, that AI was giving him great concern. And this concern is also shared with, I guess, the Chief Justice of the New South Wales Supreme Court. And it's also shared by particularly very successful practitioners, I have found, are more resistant to it. The more successful they are, the more resistant they are to the concept that AI could possibly replace them or help them, because AI is not going to replace them. And I think we've made that very clear in all of our earlier podcasts. But and then I've also been told, why are you doing this? You're going to be getting rid of lawyers. I mean, all of that is actually, I think, missing the point. And I think Tim has totally encapsulated the power of AI, and that it's there to help us get through the lower level thinking work. And of course, my AI does do quite a bit of thinking for you, but still, it's only giving you the raw material for you to then go off and apply your strategy, your thought. What you do with the data that we give you is what's going to make you really special. So you can have a whole series of lawyers being given exactly the same research report. And every time a person runs a research report, because I've explained to you before, we use a mixture of experts. Any language model has a mixture of experts. You never get an identical report back. It's always different. But let's say each one of you has given the my AI the same question. You'll get five reports that may be slightly different. I mean, the conclusions and everything will be the same because everything's guided, but the way things are framed will be a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
But what will make a standout lawyer, I think, is what that person does with that data. And I don't think you can say that all five lawyers, if five lawyers have prompted my AI, will do the exact same thing with the data. And what Tim is doing in teaching his students to critically think and to interrogate the answers and to make them make them supercharge them, really. It will affect ultimately what the lawyer, hopefully if they've had the benefit of education like this, what they do with the data to make them serve their client's interests.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not, so I think for all those people who have said to me, well, they're just, some of them are being protective, and I understand at the moment all the language models out there are not fit for purpose, right? You cannot use what is out there currently to do your law. And what is of serious concern to me is that lawyers consistently use the outputs without checking it. And even last week, I read a newspaper article, maybe it was this week, a senior counsel and their junior got in trouble with the courts. This could have happened in Victoria, maybe. And they had put in submissions to the court. They hadn't checked their work, and the case names were hallucinations. I just can't believe that. I cannot get over. I mean, fine, the senior counsel should be entitled to rely on their junior, but their junior hadn't even checked the work. And this is the kind of sloppiness
Mm-hmm.
that hopefully educators like Tim can stamp out of their students. I don't think you'll ever be able to stamp it all out of every single student, right? You can never can, because there'll always be students who just want to take the shortcut, etc. But if you want to, remain relevant in the new world, the
Uh-huh.
answer is not to just say, I am not interested in AI, I have no interest, like one senior counsel said to me yesterday. And he's actually the youngest of all the senior counsels that I have breakfast with. And the others had been invited to participate in our beta testing, and they wanted to. But the youngest one hadn't been invited because he had exhibited no interest. So when they said, are you beta testing? I said, oh no, I haven't invited him because he's shown no interest at all. And he said, exactly, I have no interest at all. I didn't say anything, but this conversation today perfectly highlights, if you've got, because my AI is so amazing, And today I saw the results of our legislative research output, and no one, no, no, it blows me away because it can go through and it can extract the relevant sections of legislation. It can tell you, for example, the questions we asked it, in what circumstances would it be an offense under the My Health Records Act to do whatever you're doing? When would be an offense to handle information that is collected under the My Health Records Act. And
Mhm.
the answer went through and captured the relevant sections from the My Health Records Act. It then went to the criminal code and extracted the relevant sections, explained all of that. It went to our case law database and it extracted all the relevant cases from the case law. It prepared a report which had, the executive summary, the abstract. It told you exactly what it was analyzing. It went through all of the sections, extracted it all, explained everything, cross-referenced it all back to the case law database, and then analyzed it all, gave you a conclusion, and all the reasoning steps and all the sources are revealed. So that is so powerful, and that it does that. I don't know how long it took to do that because my developers were testing it last night for me on their systems. 4 or 5 minutes, I don't know. It just depends as well how responsive the language models that we're using are. But let's just say it took 4 or 5 minutes to produce that. It would take a human being at least a day, 2 days, at least 2 to 3 days to prepare a report like that. So how can you say that the barrister who is resisting AI and is just using manual research tools, using Lexis or whatever they're using to, or the primary source databases to go and search it all out and then write the report. Let's say that takes them 3 days. They've lost their competitive advantage over the person who has been able to use my AI, generate this report, and then interrogate the answers, click through to all the sources, check it all, and make it correct. I mean, make sure it's correct. So that might take that person half a day, perhaps. And then you have the other person who wants to do this manually. It takes them 3 days. I mean, who is the client going to want to pay for? And who at the end of the day is going to have produced a better work product? Is it the person who sat there manually and taken them 3 days and might have missed something?
Yeah.
Whereas the barrister who's using our product, and our product has traversed the entire statutory database, it's traversed the entire case law database to generate this report. I mean, which report is going to be a more sophisticated product? It's obvious, isn't it?
Hmm. It's how the
Yeah.
user is going to utilize the tool and take out the best or the smartest version of
Yes.
themselves, right? And of course, it has to be in an ethical way.
I
Hmm.
think what you're saying, Lena, is absolutely true. It's about finding the right tool that's fit for purpose. And your MiAI tool has been developed specifically for the legal fraternity, and the algorithms that sit behind it enable lawyers to actually find information which is going to assist them in being more successful for their clients. And I think that's the critical piece. And what it then enables, I guess, is that you've now reduced the quantum of work that you need to undertake to get to what is a better outcome, because you've got a mechanized or computerized process that doesn't get tired, that doesn't miss things because of the algorithms that are written and embedded behind it, so that what you extract from it are the facts that you require. And then you have, as the higher order thinking and the human with the EQI that also sits in the background of this, you then disseminate what the best response is to support the best outcome for your client. And I think that's
Right.
so important. It's about specific tool for specific purpose that reduces workload, enables a higher level output.
Yeah. And it's based on first principle reasoning, right?
Mm.
And also, so going back to my question earlier, I was saying parents like us or anyone are often worried that AI might make students lazy. So what's
Mm.
your take in that is that a valid concern, or do we need to take it or look at it differently?
I think anything can make people lazy. I mean, the TV, when it was created, is probably the best example. Of people who've gone from the sporting person to the armchair expert on sport. And I guess that the advent of the TV is probably the best example there. However, I'd say that, like anything, things can be used to develop laziness as a skill set or not. And I think what's important at AI for us supports students by providing them personalized feedback, helping with research, and offering new ways to explore subjects. And I think that's really important. And it deepens the understanding and engagement for our kids as it's teaching them how to research. And when they know how to research in a better way, they get better information, and that builds their level of skill, capacity, and I guess knowledge that they can then apply to solving problems. So I think that's really important. And I
Mm.
think in terms of that laziness, parents have got a responsibility to guide their children in responsible use of AI and encouraging critical thinking, verifying information, and not relying on solely the answers that are provided from different AI apps and tools. I think that's pretty important, that bit. And quite often we feel that parents feel that they're disempowered. I think, well, parents are the parents. They need to take charge. And all too often we find that parents sometimes want to be the child's best friend as opposed to being the parent. And I think that notion of the parent taking back the ground and being the parent and supporting their child as opposed to being the best mate. I think that's really important. I think it's promoting active learning, and AI really is about complementing, not replacing learning and active learning, as we've been talking about. Outsource the things that the AI can do better, but maintain that higher order thinking space. And it's a starting point. Students using the starting point to whether it be brainstorm or gain ideas to help them and assist them in their level of innovation and creativity in finding better solutions to whatever the challenge happens to be. I think that's really important. Developing digital literacy. Look, we live in the world that we live in where technology drives so many things. Where's the money being made in the world at the moment in tech companies? So our kids have to have these skills, and that development of the digital literacy through using AI tools, learning how to prompt, like we've spoken about, pretty critical, pretty important. And that's not about laziness. That's just about teaching kids how to use technology in a wise way. Um, that's actually developing their brain in a better way because they're thinking more deeply about things because they're having to, in some instances, sift through more information and make more decisions about what's right, what's the better response, what's the ethical and moral response that should also be taken into account. So I think that digital literacy space is pretty important. As I said at the beginning, though, well-being, physical, emotional, spiritual well-being, and social well-being. Look, parents need to encourage their kids to get outside, play with friends,
Yeah.
be interactive, engage in sport, engage in fitness and other things that promote health and well-being. Because as I said, when you speak with people who are near the end of life, they constantly speak about, if only I was a little bit fitter and I could have done more, but I let my health slide. And as a result, I may have lost 10 years. And they always speak about you can't get back time. Time marches on. So
Right.
the more healthy or the greater you take care of your own well-being in those other components, other than just the cognitive intellectual space, the greater longevity you'll have. So I guess that comes back to promoting a healthy, balanced lifestyle. And that's not going to happen from just building an intellectual skill set. You have to be then physically and socially well to be able to use the new skill set you've developed. So I think that's pretty important. And I think the other side is, look, parents need to not fear that AI is going to make their kids lazy. It's hopefully going to build a greater level of success for them if they learn how to use it appropriately.
Mhm.
And that will support more successful careers, access to university, access to employment beyond university or TAFE or whatever, where the student goes into the world with a bigger set of capabilities and capacity to support an enterprise, to be the entrepreneur themselves, which leads to, flourishing and successful young people who've got really sound mental as well as physical well-being, as well as all of the other components that make up a healthy human.
Mhm. Right. And it reminds me of what Lena said before that AI will never ever replace lawyers. It will just make them better and smarter and more efficient. And
But it will replace some.
the
Yeah.
I
ones
don't
who are
think you
using
can
AI,
avoid that. It will replace some. It will replace the ones who do the lower level grunt work. but it will not replace the ones who do the higher order of thinking.
Mhm. Critical thinking. And
Yeah.
I agree with Tim.
Right.
Laziness has always existed with or without AI. And the tools doesn't make the student lazy. It's the culture and expectations around them too. So looking ahead, Laina and Tim, what skills will separate students who thrive with AI or lawyers who thrive with AI from those who struggle with it?
Sure. Look, I think students who thrive will be those who've got a balanced life and who've learned to solve complex problems individually, collaboratively, and using technology where it's appropriate. Critical thinking and problem solving, I think, is one of those critical spaces. Students who can analyze complex problems, evaluate AI outputs critically, and make informed decisions will excel in working alongside AI and AI technologies. I think that's really important. It's about the complementary nature that will lead to the greatest level of success, and the people who are able to understand best about how to get the most out of their technology to support their higher order thinking. Digital literacy, I've spoken about, that's critical, and the development of capabilities over that space, creativity and innovation using tech. And we see in medical research constantly now AI being used to help find better solutions to resolve cancer and things of that nature. So I think that ability to use it for that creation and innovation, for entrepreneurship, but also to assist in things such as medical research to improve life outcomes for humans. I think that's amazing. Adaptability in lifelong learning. So we here, one of the things that we promote is successful lifelong learning, and AI is supporting our kids in that space, and I think will do into the future, because that's about embracing that notion of continuous learning and adapting and being able to use the technologies to support that into the future, so that people can thrive. I guess ethical awareness and responsible use look so important. I think that's the space where where's the humans who are in control of the AI have to maintain that space and maintain some lines in the sand to see that it's used for ethical and moral purposes. And like with anything, there's, people use things for unethical reasons. How do we respond as a society into the future to make sure that these tools enable equity, enable fairness, and are crucial in building a better world for us all. Collaboration and communication. Obviously, if we're outsourcing lower level work to tools, we've got a greater amount of time to spend collaborating, working with each other to find solutions or undiscovered solutions to complex problems. AI can certainly and will continue to support us into the future. And I think that'll see us well into the future, 10 years plus. As we know, we change every day, society changes every day. Our role is to keep pace with it so that we can continue to thrive.
Uh, well, would you like to add something to that, Lena?
No, I agree.
I love listening to Tim.
He said
I
it
can
so
relate.
eloquently, I don't need to repeat it.
I
I
know.
agree.
Yeah. And those are the edges that AI could actually do from solving problems, as you said, complex problems, to becoming more creative and being more collaborative with the proper use and ethical use of AI. And honestly, those
I mean,
sound like,
at the moment, AI is only mimicking, right? It cannot solve anything. It cannot solve anything from first principles unless you've done the algorithms for it, right? But generally, AI out there, the language models, Perplexity, Gemini, ChatGPT, etc., they're only mimicking. They're not actually reasoning or doing anything. They're just going into the World Wide Web and hopefully they're finding an answer that is within their training data set. So they're just spitting it back out at you. They're not doing anything new. They're not creating anything new. There's no super intelligence yet. So it's up to the human being at the moment to use the information that's coming back and use that to springboard into new development and new innovation.
mhm.
So it's not at the moment, it really is just a tool. We're not at super intelligence. And I don't see how uh, people think, that somehow you can get super intelligence from patterns. right? I mean, they keep hiring like Meta and people like that. He's creating his new super intelligence lab, and
Yeah.
Mark Zuckerberg has paid billions and billions and billions of dollars to put together this whole group of very good technical people.
Yeah.
But is it going to be enough that just because you can look at of how the patterns of how certain decisions are made or the outcomes of decisions, if you look at law, you look at medicine, etc. If you're just looking at patterns, is that going to be enough to create super intelligence? I don't think so. I think you need the actual expertise from the each area, the medical expertise that you have to somehow be able to capture the, let's talk about doctors, for example. You have to be able to capture how they think, the methodology they go through, etc., from the input data through to the output, their conclusion. You have to be able to capture how they got from A to B. And I don't know the answer to this. I don't know if you can just say, well, we know given this set of input data, the doctor always reaches this conclusion, but I don't think it's so linear. And I don't think you can just go from A to B and put billions of dollars worth of technologists together to extract patterns and draw patterns and mind maps, etc., and somehow be able to get from A to B. Because we know at MiAI, and we launched our patent on Monday, we know that pattern matching and developers love this. They love drawing mind maps of, this area of law is close to that area of law and etc. I can show you a mind map that someone has done
Hmm.
and he's been able to say, oh, this area of law is isolated from that area of law, etc. And he's done all these maps. They're very pretty, but that in itself, by itself, if you just use that, it's not going to help you work out what the correct answer is, And as my developers say, what is really special about us is the algorithms that sit behind all this, the whole of my AI. There's every single thing that the machine does is guided. It's not allowed to just go off and do whatever it is it wants and it's not allowed to rely upon its own pre-trained knowledge. Everything is guided, everything is source backed, everything. But it's only been able to do that because I've been able to reduce all of my experience and all of my reasoning methodology into algorithms. And so I think, and Arjun thinks as well, he's our chief technology person, he also owns Fastcode, that is what you actually need to be able to reduce, well, create super intelligence. And it's not enough to just be looking at the patterns of things and have a whole bunch of developers looking at all the knowledge in the world to work out how did you get from A to B. I don't think you can do that. What do you think, Tim?
I wholeheartedly agree, Lena. And going back to the doctor space, if you're in a consult with the doctor, the questioning, the sequence of questioning for the doctor to understand what may be your circumstance or your ailment
Yes.
changes based on the question that was asked and your response to it. And that's where the EQI part comes in, the knowledge of the human body and what makes up the human body in illness and illness. But that EQI space based on the response, based on the tone in the response, and that ability, I don't think a tool or a technology tool is going to replace that. I mean, we got people who turn to Dr. Google now, don't we, for their
I know.
diagnosis.
And then they often
And
think they're dying of some dire cancer because that's what Dr. Google has returned to you.
exactly. Exactly. So
Unbelievable. But yeah, well, thank you. And you know what? I agree with you, Lena. I mean, you know better. You know the best. And
Well, I only know about law. I know that no amount of pattern matching is going to be able to. Can I show you a map? Is it possible to share a screen and show a map?
yeah, sure, go ahead.
Okay, so this guy, he's very clever. Bulma Butler, let's acknowledge him. He's very clever. I think he's got a law degree as well, but he's a data scientist, etc. And he's mapped every single law, regulation, and case. Almost. He hasn't. He hasn't got all of it. He's got the High Court, the Federal Court, New South Wales, because those things are all open source. And so he's done this. So he's mapped every single law, and then he's gone, you click on it, it opens up into the primary source. How
Okay.
do I, right? So, but he's done this, and he makes these little findings. But what does it actually, but does it mean? I mean, it's very nice, and I'm sure he's somehow been able to use it to help himself develop a re-ranker, maybe, I don't know. But in itself, so what? I just
Yeah.
can't see so what. So what if he's been able to find very clusters of information and then he can see, administrative law, what sits out here by itself, and then, there's some intersection between different other areas of law, property and land, which is kind of that the principles are intersecting here. But I don't know how this can lead to possible super intelligence. I mean, what does it
Yeah, what's his why? What's his why? Why did he create it? That'd be interesting to understand. Yeah, I agree with you
That's a
totally, Laina.
good thing, Tim.
He said this is the first ever map of Australian law. Each point represents a unique law regulation, etc. He did that, and then yes, it's beautiful. He says it covers what the map can teach us about Australian law. So it says it gives us a rare look into some of the many hidden ways Australian laws, regulations, and cases are both connected or disconnected from each other. But so what? And then he says this is the invisible barrier between cases and legislation. Well, that's not, I don't actually know what that means. But what is it? It's very interesting. It's no doubt it's very interesting. But in terms of a step towards super intelligence, what does that show? Because I certainly didn't do that in writing any of my algorithms and reducing any of my algorithms down to sorry, any of my thinking process down to algorithms. But then interestingly, I asked OpenAI, what is the significance of this? Or what is the significance of his mapping? And given what I have done, and it says that this just affirms that what I did was possible.
Okay.
But I don't see how that either. I don't understand that. I just don't understand. And this is only, and I think it's great what he's done, and I think it's very interesting. And that he says there's an absence of borders between documents of different jurisdictions. That's not surprising because generally, the High Court of Australia governs all of the law in Australia. And yes, there's some differences between the states and territories, but generally it's kind of homogenous with some differences. But I just don't see how is
Yeah.
this going to lead to super intelligence? And the point is like Facebook, Meta has hired heaps and heaps and heaps of technologists who will be really great at developing maps
Mm.
like this for every single type of profession. But I don't know how that in itself, without the intelligence of the doctor or, where you can actually map and reduce the professional's reasoning down to algorithms, how this is going to get anywhere.
Yeah.
Or why. I didn't even need this. I did not need this in order to reduce my legal thinking down to algorithms, which now form the back end of my AI.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, as Tim said, those advantages, the skills, sound like the exemplary capability or skills we could all use with or without AI. But well, this is such an eye-opening chat, and education in the AI era is not about competing with machines, right, team? It's about sharpening what makes us human, our reasoning, our creativity, and our judgment. So thank you so much, team, for bringing the perspective of what's happening in the classrooms today. And Laina, of course, thank you for showing us how the same principles apply even in the highest levels of law and business. It's an honor to have both of you in one podcast, really. I mean, I love being surrounded by intellectual people like you. And aside from that, very award winning. So thank you so much, guys.
Thanks so much,
Thanks.
Miles.
Thanks, Miles.
Thank you. For those of you tuning in, if you'd like to connect with Tim, you can follow him or his incredible work at Plumpton High School. And if you're curious about the future of legal research, transparency in AI, or how AI can empower legal professionals, head over to myai.law. Thank you guys for staying with me, Laina and Tim. Until next time, remember that even in the age of AI, curiosity never goes out of style. See you in our next episode. This has been your host, Miles. Stay focused and inspired with Xraised.